Welcome to Flex That Worx, a podcast for anyone building, managing, or growing a flexible workspace without making things more complicated than they need to be. If you're running a single co-working space, juggling multiple locations, or overseeing a growing network of spaces across towns or cities, this is your space. It's for the operators, the managers, decision makers, the people doing the work to make these places run. This is Flex That Worx, scaling your workspace made simpler and less stressful. See you in the episode. So what I think could be useful, right, is to take people through the steps of if they were to kind of review their pricing. You know, there's an element of set it and forget it. There's an element of put it in place, let it run, right? Keep a view on whether it's working. But if something in your space isn't going to plan, I don't think pricing is one of those things you want to be constantly tweaking. At the same time, you don't want to set it and never look at it again and be like, oh God, I don't know what my pricing is doing. You need to be obviously keeping a view on the balance sheet of the business. Yeah. Costs are changing, coffee costs are changing, everything's changing all the time. So if people were to be taking kind of steps to keeping an active eye on pricing without over-engineering it, how often do you think they should be reviewing?
Annually is probably the minimum, you know. I think we're all kind of engineered, or we're okay with reviewing prices. Prices only ever go one way anyway. and I think there's a difficulty actually when you're in a service industry like co-working. A lot of the costs, and just to get back to the nuts and bolts, and we were talking about pricing and, you know, all that type of hypothetical stuff, but like at the end of the day, you do need to have a very clear understanding of your cost base, and that will be one of the biggest dictators of your price. Your minimum price is this, and then all the value adds and stuff that you can put onto that is where you can raise your price and hopefully increase margin and all that kind of good stuff. The difficulty that operators are having, and it's not only in co-working, is all the costs you're talking about, like energy, coffee, you know, all these variable costs. They can move on a monthly basis or a weekly basis. As an operator, then you can't, as you said, the prices in co-working are sticky. You know, as you said, if you change it every quarter, people are going to be like, Jesus, I don't know what that place costs to go down to.
What data or signals should trigger a pricing adjustment?
So you should be reviewing your costs as much as possible. You need to have a really tight, you know, cash flow model built, right? You need a really good accounting system that can allow you to put your finger on the pulse immediately and see where costs are going. You need to kind of set out contingency plans. Plan A, you know, plan B, plan C. Plan A, if electricity goes up another 10%, or we think it's going to go up another 10%, this is what our overheads are going to look like. If the landlord comes in and we think he's going to, like the next door neighbour here, who their prices have gone up 10%, their rent has gone up 10%, we can expect the same at this date. You need to start forecasting. And once the forecasts start looking daunting, or they look like they're going to affect your bottom line, you need to start having conversations with the customers then. When you're having the coffees, things are getting expensive.
Put that down.
You've had 4 cups of coffee today, I know.
Not that I'm watching or anything. Have those trigger points kind of in your plan, and you're keeping a close eye, and when you hit them, if you hit them, then you implement, you know, the effect, which is pass it on to the pricing or whatever the case might be.
It's like driving on a road, right? If you see a big pothole coming towards it, you have loads of opportunity. You can slow down, all right? You can steer around it, or you can put the shoe down and hope you bounce over it. But if you drive clean into it, it's your own fault. You need to have your plans, you know?
Graham, what do you think is a good way of making pricing changes without alienating current members? Do you end up in that place where you've got this Frankenstein kind of pricing model?
Can you afford that? You know, if we're constantly here talking about members, talking about sharing and all collaborating and, you know, sharing insights and stuff like that, the conversation about what are you paying for your desk? What are you paying for this price? You don't want them having that in the kitchen, right? So you probably should have a standardized cost or standardized pricing. The one place you can play around with pricing, and we've built this into our system, sorry to do the product flow, but if you have a customer that comes in and they're willing to take maybe, you know, 20% of your desks, or, you know, 10% of your desks, you can create an off-site or private pricing that you can give that economies of scale. In that situation, the only person that knows the price of the desks is the person paying the bill. Everybody probably should be paying the same price that's out in the open.
So you're into comms a structured rollout implementing for everybody, regardless of how long they've been in the space.
Yeah. But I mean, the other thing here, like, I mean, we've all gotten the emails where it's like, due to, economic changes, inflation, rising costs, we have to up the price. It's okay to make money, and it's okay for your business. You can't swallow all the costs. Like, you can't be expected to. And unfortunately, you also have to accept that once the price of something goes up, there is a potential that you will lose what were loyal customers, not because they want to give up the space, but they're no longer achieving the value that they were, or they cannot afford to do it anymore. Unfortunately, that is just the natural way of the world. That's just natural economics. If you don't charge your clients enough, with the fear of losing your clients, what happens is you'll have to shut down the business and you'll have no clients anymore.
So one thing I'd love to explore now before we wrap up, right, is around pricing models, tiered models, add-ons, bundles, packages. Okay? Because obviously that's something that we see emerging more and more as spaces have different types of offerings. Spaces have childcare. They have incubator functions on the side. They have resources if they are craft spaces. And, you've got a rolling mill for jewelers. You've got fashion design resources. You have all different types of amenities and services being offered based on the type of client that you're serving. So when it comes to pricing your space, that makes it maybe a little bit more complex because you have different people in one building using different elements of the space. And you also have people coming in who just want your hot desk. They just want a closed door office. They just want a meeting room. They might want the event space for their team offsite every now and again. So for that, we have seen more and more operators taking up pricing bundles. That's something we've actually built into BaseWorks and is very useful to our clients. So from your perspective, Graham, how would you suggest people implement the bundles? What have you seen work best? How do you offer flexibility to your members without confusing them?
There's a couple of things at play here around things like meeting room access and stuff like that. You're looking at fair usage policies, right? So I've seen instances where everybody gets the same level of access to the meeting rooms. And that goes for a hot desk person that may be paying 20 quid for the day versus someone who's a member who's paying, 300 quid for the month. If you have a popular time of the year where people come in, they get a desk, but they're actually spending most of their time in the meeting room, which you could be selling for 20 quid an hour, let alone a hot desk for 20 quid a day. This is where you need to start thinking about, well, if you want a hot desk for the day, it's this. And if you want meeting room time, you can buy a bundle of meeting room time to add to that. What you're doing then is you're ring fencing fair usage. You as a business are extracting the value that you're providing, but you're also managing the expectations of the person coming in the door. You're avoiding that awkward conversation where, like, if you come into a space, Anne-Marie, for the day, and also you toddle into one of the meeting rooms, like, you've only just paid for a desk. You avoid that conversation, that awkward conversation. Oh, geez, I didn't realize that. But now what you have is you have an unhappy person who thought they had access to a meeting room. They now can't do their video call, and they have to go back to a hot desk in a place that they're probably not every day. And now they've had a bad experience. Whereas if they knew they had to buy the meeting room time, and there was, again, clear parameters by the service levels you're offering, everybody's happy. It's all about managing expectations effectively. And it's, again, for you as an operator, it's going to be how you mix all of that together. I think the key thing is to provide that flexibility for people to take what they like from your service offering.
What's the simplest way to present members with bundles so that you can see value instantly?
Hot desk cost this price. Hot desk plus meeting room time cost that. With the ability then to add things like car spaces and AV equipment and dual monitors, these kind of things. That these are all the little value adds that you can add, and like, if it's, it might be €5 here, €2 here. These assets are sitting on a desk somewhere. You might as well be making some money out of them, So it's all about presentation. Whether you're using our software or some other software, you need to be seeing where you can sweat your assets as much as possible.
So that could be a key step in the audit process then. When people are reviewing the value that can be derived from their space in its current makeup and in potential makeups of the space, because I do know a lot of spaces are remodeling at the moment based on changes in the market. So looking at exactly down into the detail, what's on the desk that adds value. Yeah.
Yeah.
And bringing all of that together. I know we spoke with an operator who has 12 spaces, and parking is a key part of the value prop in 3 of the locations. And then they have 2 city centre locations where it's not relevant at all. If anything, it's probably a value add that people can walk and get the bus there and cycle there. And for them, it's somewhere to put the umbrella and the bike when you've made it in there without a car.
And those guys are very clever in their model. They keep it like, it's all along exits off motorways, which is very clever. They know then by their positioning, the people that need to get off the road and have a meeting are a certain type of worker, a certain person doing a certain type of role. And they've engineered their spaces to cater for those then, which is brilliant.
And that links into what bundle would look relevant and valuable to that member in that space. So it's all comes back down to knowing who you're speaking to and the type of people you want to have coming in the door. And then the number you put on the price has to be reflective of the value that person is getting from your space and that you're delivering. I think it's really helpful just to give people tangible examples like we've done, as to the mindset shifts that are required for people to be aware of their pricing, be ahead of it, be on top of it, and know how to take in information we're hearing about the market as it evolves and what that means for your pricing, what tangible, realistic steps you can take to bring those changes through into your space, to get the clarity around your own pricing and to feel that sense that you have a secure plan in place as things continue to evolve, as they always have done and as they will continue to in industry.
Sure.
We hear a lot of doom and gloom stuff, but every industry has always needed to adapt to change. And everything that shifts typically can represent change, maybe, but there can be positive opportunity in it too. And knowing your space well, knowing your members well, knowing your market well, and having a sense as to the bottom line, the operating costs, how it impacts your pricing, all of that just puts you in a power position for your co-working space, So we'd love to hear any feedback from anybody around steps that you've taken around pricing your space that have potentially worked really well, any lessons you have learned that you feel may benefit other operators. Absolutely get in touch with us and share them. We'd love to hear it. Thank you so much for joining us for this episode of Flex That Worx. Keep an eye out in all the places where you listen to your podcasts, and you will see the next episode very soon. Thanks so much. Thanks for tuning in to Flex That Worx. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to follow or subscribe wherever you get your podcasts so you don't miss our next episode. Connect with us on LinkedIn, watch the full episode on YouTube, and you can explore free tools and resources over at baseworks.co. This is Flex That Worx, powered by Baseworks, here to help you scale your workspace, making it simpler and less stressful.